Ukraine is a testing ground for Western weapons. A mock-up of the Russian Iskander missile has also been created here and will be used as a dirty bomb. Ukrainians want to sink a ship with grain and blame Russia for it. Today we will talk about these and other new episodes of Kremlin propaganda. Detector Media did all the dirty fact-checking work for you. We have separated real facts from those of a parallel universe. My name is Vadym Miskyi. In the next 10 minutes I will tell you about the most impressive examples of Kremlin propaganda, as well as about some international media that use unverified sources of information. Here we go. Ukraine is a testing ground for Western weapons. This, according to the Kremlin media, was stated by the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Oleksiy Reznikov. The pretext was his interview for Politico. The propagandists made their own conclusion that the Ukrainian authorities consider their country to be a testing ground and entirely unexpectedly warned the world about the danger of Kyiv using a dirty bomb. I would like to remind you that Western partners have repeatedly called on the Kremlin to stop speculations around the dirty bomb and the nuclear threat in general.
If he has no intention, why does he keep talking about it? Why does he talk about the ability to use a tactical nuclear weapon? He's been very dangerous in how he's approached this, and he should just get out. He can end this all. Get out of Ukraine.
In fact, in the interview, Oleksiy Reznikov discussed the prospects for new weapons to be supplied to Ukraine by the allies. The minister called on the partners to test their weapons on the battlefield against the Russian invaders to check their performance. To quote, "We have a combat testing field in Ukraine during this war. I think that all see how we use these systems. You know that we have 8 different 155mm artillery systems in the field. So it's like a competition between systems." This quote was taken out of context by Russian media. Meanwhile, the West continues to support Ukraine with weapons shipment.
But we also know that this is an aggression against the very principles that are at the heart of the international system, necessary for keeping peace and security. Principles that grew out of the experience of 2 world wars and a conviction that we had to find ways to make sure that those couldn't be repeated. And so there was an agreement that you can't simply go in and seize territory from another country, that you can't change the borders of another country by force, that you can't try to erase its independence and sovereignty from the map. And if we allow that to go unchecked, if we allow that to proceed with impunity, it opens a Pandora's box around the world for would-be aggressors.
Now let's talk about our favorite Russian propaganda fake. Ukraine supposedly created a mock-up of the Russian Iskander missile, which they want to use as a dirty bomb. Such messages were spread after the statement of the Russian president.
Мы же не случайно обнародовали данные спецслужб по поводу того, что готовят какой-то инцидент с так называемой грязной бомбой. Это же просто сделать. Мы даже знаем, где примерно это делается. Ну, остатки там ядерного топлива немножко преобразовали. Технологии, имеющиеся на Украине, позволяют это сделать. Загрузили там в точку У или куда-нибудь другое, подорвали где-то это устройство, сказали, что это Россия сделала, нанесла ядерный удар. Но нам не нужно этого делать. У нас смысла нет никакого. Ни политического, ни военного.
According to propagandists, the mock-up was allegedly made by experts of Vadym Miskyi, a leading Ukrainian manufacturer of rocket and space technology. There it is to be stuffed with radioactive material and then crashed near Chernobyl to shock the world and blame Russia. However, according to the fact-checkers of The Insider, the so-called mock-up shown by the Russian media is fake. Despite similar outlines, .U and Iskander missiles have different sizes. The diameter of Iskander is 920mm and the .U is 650mm, almost 1.5 times smaller. It is impossible to create a mock-up of Iskander on the basis of .u, maybe just a smaller copy, which is unlikely to convince international experts. I would point out that earlier the NATO Secretary General said that Russia constantly accuses others of what it's going to do itself.
Russia now falsely claims Ukraine is preparing to use a radiological dirty bomb on its own territory. NATO allies reject this transparently false allegation. Russia often accuses others for what they intend to do themselves. We have seen this pattern before, from Syria to Ukraine. Russia must not use false pretexts for further escalation. The world is watching closely.
At the beginning of the war, Kremlin propagandists claimed that Ukraine was working on a dirty bomb. Back then, they claimed that it was happening in the Chernobyl zone. However, they did not provide any evidence, although the exclusion zone was captured by Russian troops. After Russia's statements that such a dirty bomb was being developed at the Ukrainian nuclear facilities and scientific institutions, Ukraine invited the International Atomic Energy Agency to come and check everything. The inspectors arrived and checked locations pointed out by Russia and, what a wonder, did not find any signs of nuclear activity and materials there. So it was just another lie. Ukrainians want to sink a ship with grain and blame it on Russia. This fake was spread by anonymous Telegram channels controlled by the FSB. Supposedly, with this provocation, they will try to boost anti-Russian discourse, that it is Russia that provokes famine in poor countries. The fake about the sinking of one of the ships with the grain is probably a signal that the Russians already have a similar plan. Propagandists are working in advance to shift the responsibility for their crime onto someone else. Turkish leader Recep Erdogan was able to bring the Russian president back to the grain deal.
Всем известно, что, к сожалению, Украина использовала этот гуманитарный коридор для попыток нанесения ударов по Черноморскому флоту. Мы потребовали от украинской стороны заверений в том, что и гарантии в том, что ничего подобного в будущем происходить не будет, что гуманитарные коридоры не будут использоваться для военных целей. Посредником в прояснении этой ситуации выступили наши турецкие партнеры.
In turn, the UN refuted Russia's lies about the connection between the grain corridor and the attack on Russian ships. UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs Martin Griffiths said that no civilian vessel carrying grain could have been involved in the attack.
I think it's hugely important to notice the distinction and not to obscure the distinction between a termination and a suspension. We are at the moment very actively engaged with Russian JCC members, the Joint Coordination Center members, who are still there, still in Istanbul, on the sort of issues that need to bring them back as soon as possible into full participation. I made reference in the Security Council to our views on the Russian claims that the attacks on Sevastopol would somehow, in some way, have breached the provisions of the Black Sea Grain Initiative. In our view, there is no substance to those claims. In any case,
in fact, after Ukraine, the UN and Turkey informed Russia that they would extend the deal despite Russia's statement. The entire world saw the weakness of Russia's position. It cannot block Ukrainian ports, it cannot destroy Turkish ships, and it cannot blackmail Ukraine again because of its success on the battlefield, because now Russia is losing. So it was simply forced to return to the agreement, and propagandists had to somehow explain this to the public. Ukraine, they say, gave written guarantees that it would not use the humanitarian corridor for military operations. But this is not true. Ukraine did not provide any additional guarantees. it had given them at the very beginning and fulfilled them in good faith. Twitter started labeling Ukrainian media accounts with special tags. This manipulative information was spread in pro-Kremlin Telegram channels. Allegedly, the social network began to apply special labels not only for Russian but also for Ukrainian state-run media. This way, Russia hints that Ukrainian state media are as propagandistic as Russian ones. This is an outright manipulation. 2 years ago, in an effort to counter disinformation, Twitter began flagging and reducing the reach of accounts controlled by Russian authorities. The cause for the fantasies of Russian propagandists was Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter. He promised to loosen the rules of content moderation on the platform and remove the bans, namely the account of former US President Donald Trump. Elon Musk fired the top management of Twitter, including the head of the legal policy department, who last year decided to block Donald Trump on the platform. Pro-Russian military expert Scott Ritter has already tested Twitter for the possibility to post Kremlin propaganda. He wrote an outright lie. Bucha was a war crime. Ukraine did it. This way, the former American military officer, now loyal to Putin's regime, supposedly decided to test platforms' reaction to such tweets. Currently, his page is blocked, but the screenshots of the so-called test about Bucha were circulated on Twitter by Russian world supporters.
Did it come as a surprise to you that your Twitter account was reinstated?
My Twitter account wasn't reinstated. I reinstated myself. The original Twitter account continues to be banned. I took advantage of Elon Musk's bold statement that the bird is free. And so to test that theory, I reinstated myself onto Twitter by creating an illegal account. It's in my name. I'm not hiding who I am. And then I tested Elon Musk by making the following statement. Bucha was a war crime. Ukraine did it. And within 12 hours, Twitter banned me.
The hopes of the Kremlin media that Twitter will allow spreading propaganda were in a way inspired by Elon Musk himself. In October, he published the so-called peace plan on Twitter, which was supposed to help end the war. Elon Musk is convinced that Ukraine should give up Crimea and adopt a neutral status. This angered Ukrainians. And this is a tweet by Volodymyr Zelensky. Here is a question and two answers. Which Elon Musk do you like more? The one that supports Ukraine or the one that supports Russia? The question is rhetorical, don't you think? Well, let's sincerely hope that the richest man of the planet will be able to limit his personal control over Twitter with rules, procedures, and common sense. And that Elon Musk will not turn this social platform into a paradise for Kremlin propagandists. Good luck!